Hello, everybody. Welcome back to OTT Executive Podcast. I'm thrilled to have Cathy Rasenberger joining us today. Welcome, Cathy.
Thank you for having me, Brian. I'm excited.
So, Cathy, you are the founder and president of Rasenberger Media. You've been in the business a long time, and the co-founder of Sports Studio and Free Live Sports. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yep.
Cool. So we have a lot to talk about in a short period of time, but I always like to start, and it's one of the big questions that our audience loves. Tell us a little bit about your career. How did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, so it's been a long time coming. I started in the cable industry in the early 80s. And I often say, I've seen the full arc from the birth of cable to now really the emergence of streaming and taking over cable. So I started I think my first job in cable was with Warner Brothers Television when we sold movies to HBO with the birth of HBO in the early 80s. And then I moved on to become the publisher of Cablevision Magazine, which was then the leading cable trade magazine in the go-go heyday of cable. When there were so many cable networks launching, we had one edition of Cablevision Magazine that had 500 pages of
Oh my
ads in it. It was
goodness.
literally
Wow.
the leading, it was the one of the top 10 um, uh, biggest ad producers of both trade and consumer magazines. Went on to ESPN, where I was in the early 80s for many, many years, at a time when ESPN was just birthing. And I often make the comparison of the early days of ESPN when media buyers would not buy ESPN, advertising on ESPN, because cable was so new and there
Mm.
wasn't standardized measurement that they could use to actually track the performance of advertising on ESPN. That
Sounds
quickly
familiar,
changed.
huh?
Sounds familiar. It's very much like the current days in CTV and FAST, a reluctance among media buyers to buy a new type of viewership data.
Mhm.
So anyway, I started ESPN. I started their international division in the 80s as well, which has now turned into like $1 billion
Oh yeah.
part of the company. But at that point, it was just going out and looking for business internationally. And I moved on after ESPN to TV Guide, where I ran their cable division for Rupert Murdoch, and then was part of the launch team at Food Network. And co-managed their distribution and marketing,
Mhm.
and left when Scripps bought Food Network in 1997. And at
Mhm.
that time, I started a business. It was just when analog cable had converted to digital. So there's a huge amount of additional bandwidth for new emerging cable networks to get launched. And so I started a business advising, 28 years ago, this was
Wow.
advising independent cable networks on how to launch a cable television network. And I launched 28 independent cable networks
Wow,
since
amazing.
then. And there's no magic to the number 28. Just happens that in 28 years, I launched
So
over
one per year.
25.
That's not
Yeah,
too bad.
over. And about 8 or 9 years ago, I also advised a ton of major media
Mhm.
companies on all parts of the rapidly evolving ecosystem in cable and streaming. And from Condé Nast to Universal Music to MGM, and launched a lot of cable networks using their video assets, moving them into cable from their existing movie or music footprint. And about 8 or 9 years ago, I started urging my cable network clients to move into free ad supported streaming just to offset the loss of cable revenues
You saw it
from
coming.
cord cutting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I encouraged them to launch a complementary network. A fast network had to be differentiated, and got into the space and realized how easy it was to launch these networks versus, I shouldn't say easy, but versus cable networks, that many cable networks required $100 million before they broke even. It
Mhm.
took a long time to get these networks launched, and it was just a much more arduous and difficult path for cable networks. Started launching free ad supported streaming networks, have launched, oh God, well over 2 dozen in the last 8 or 9 years, and noticed that the one underrepresented space in FAST was sports
Mm,
until quite recently. It was
yep.
the most underrepresented category in free ad supported streaming, which didn't make sense to me. It makes sense to me now. The big professional leagues didn't really want to step into fast and potentially jeopardize their premier live
Hmm.
rights. And so they got into fast very judiciously. Now, in the last year and a half, the number of fast sports channels has more than doubled.
Yeah.
So everybody has jumped on board the fast bandwagon at this point in the
And
sports
so
world.
sports was one of the final holdouts, also, holding the rear guard, so to speak, for cable and the value there for, subscription-based services. Tell me about that journey a little bit and, how you came about founding Sports Studio and Free Live Sports.
Yes, so the opportunity was presented to me to by the owner of the leading free sports streaming platform in Europe to buy his company, then called Sports Tribal. The fast industry hadn't taken off in the rest of the world the way it had exploded in the US. And so he was financially strained, let's just say, and
Hmm.
presented the opportunity, asked me if I knew anybody who might want to buy it. I did. I brought in two other partners, my partners at OTT Studios and Active TV, and we acquired the company, pivoted immediately to the US. My partners and I are each experts in different parts of the streaming space, uh, OTT app development, fast channel development and distribution. And together we created sort of the dream team. And we pivoted to the US. We tripled our app footprint. We added another 65 channels, and we
Mm.
relaunched a little over a year ago is freelivesports.tv. And we're now the largest free sports streaming platform in the world. Not
So is that it, Kathy? Is a big part of this scale? Like, because doing this in a onesie twosie sort of way may not have the economies that you need to be profitable and stuff. Like, what did you do to turn that business around and make it profitable and growing again?
Well, first of all, we focused on the US and North
Okay.
America, where there was a, you know, a huge base of viewers that had exploded over during COVID, frankly.
Mhm.
There were several factors in the US that made the US a much more fertile environment for the development of fast. First of all, massive cord cutting from cable because
Mhm.
cable was too expensive. No free to air alternative. In every other country in Europe, there is a free to air alternative
Mm.
or government subsidized in every country. So there's no significant need for fast in Europe because there's really high quality programming available there. So there was a big user base. At that time in the beginning of COVID, both Pluto and Tubi had 80 million monthly active users.
Mm.
That type of environment can sustain the development and the success of a new fast channels. And so
Mhm.
overnight, 1,800 fast channels emerged in the U.S. Um,
It is incredible. It does seem just overnight, really.
it was overnight. And what also happened during COVID, I mean, it was just sort of a perfect storm of events. The cord cutting was happening, no free to air alternative. And then COVID happened, and smart TV manufacturers started, really flooding the market with
Hmm.
smart TVs. And people bought one for every room in their house, including their bathrooms and their back porches and their barbecue area. And all
Hmm.
anyone did for a year was watch TV. And free
Right.
TV was a lot more accessible than paid TV. So it actually was a perfect storm in the US. And so we pivoted here. We cut costs pretty dramatically. We really focused on growth where it made sense. We tripled our app footprint, and we very quickly had over 125 free sports channels, which is just more than any other platform. So we sort of created a destination. I often say it's like the pure sports Pluto.
Hmm.
People come to Free Live Sports knowing that all they're going to find is pure sports.
Yeah.
So it's a destination for sports fan. I often describe Free Live Sports as like a big sports bar in Times Square that people come to
Good
get their
analogy.
fix for the sport they
Right.
really want.
The
And there are
screens everywhere. They're like, okay, yeah.
100 screens in that sports bar, and they find cricket because they can't find cricket on any other
Oh, yeah.
platform, or they can't find pickleball anywhere else. Or frankly, a lot of our sports are not accessible on
Hmm.
television anyplace else. So they come into our sports bar knowing it's available. They watch and get their fix of whatever they're super passionate the sports they're most passionate about. And then they look around the sports bar and they see, oh my God, they've got NASCAR too, or
Hmm.
they've got rodeo, or they've
Hmm.
got padel, other sports, tennis, golf
Hmm.
that they're interested in that they haven't been able to find elsewhere. And so they stay within this sports bar and you know,
And
they
they keep
become
coming back
they
too, right?
become super fans. So
Can you give some examples for our viewers of the type of sports that you carry? And then I'd love to hear any kind of surprises you might have learned in terms of crossover between
yeah,
different sports and take us on that sort of content discovery process for your viewers and how they might
yeah.
be like, okay, you mentioned rodeo and cricket. I mean, is there crossover there? That'd be interesting. I'd love to see
There's
that.
a
I'd
lot
love
of
to see that demographic
unusual, yeah,
profile.
really unusual crossover. It's
Okay.
interesting, and we're still in the discovery process, I might say. But we cover every sport. So our goal is to, for the sports fan, have every sport available to them. High quality sports they can't
Hmm.
find elsewhere. Or maybe they can find it elsewhere, but we want
But
to
not,
have
but
all
maybe not easily, right?
easily. Yeah, we want to
Yep.
have all the professional leagues fast channels, as well as some of the emerging sports that haven't really been available on other platforms. So we always say we're all sports for all fans and all for free.
Mhm.
And so what have we found? The interesting thing to me is there is a super passionate fan following, maybe not a huge one, for every sport network we carry.
Mhm.
So even for World Chase Tag, an interesting sport with a super fan following, and it's sort of cult like in its
But it's kind of
uh,
like I don't want to be like whatever, but it was sort of an invented sport, but
yeah,
it's
exactly.
really fun to
Take it
follow
on.
along.
Yeah.
How is that journey different from a traditional sport like I don't know, baseball or tennis or something?
Well, I mean, obviously there's an established fan base for tennis and for auto racing and for, all the other
Yeah.
traditional sports. This is more of a cool water cooler, conversation sport where people discover it and talk about it and come back to watch it because of its newness. But that's just an example of something we had exclusively. We stood up the channel, we
Hmm.
distributed it exclusively on our platform, and so you had to come to our platform to see it. We're doing a ton of more of that. But the interesting things that I have found, 60% of our channels have live content on them. Not every day, but do have live content
Oh,
every,
wow, interesting. So
yeah,
that's a unique challenge right there.
so a lot of live content. And we find that when even channels that don't have a particularly large following every day, when they put on a live event, they can increase their viewership 100%. So billiards TV, for instance, they have
Hmm.
a live event, a multi-day live event in Las Vegas, their viewership goes up 100%, and they become, for that period of time, the most viewed channel in our electronic programming guide. So live drives viewership,
Is
and
it
that's
important that
been
it's actually live or is like live, kind of premiere okay?
um, like live is fine, but
Okay.
the fact that it's live, that it hasn't been been seen before
Yeah.
does have a huge value add. And
Because all
that
those
goes
fans are going to tune in, right? If
they
that's,
tune in.
yeah.
They find it and they tune in. So, one of the problems in our environment across all streaming is discovery of content.
Hmm.
And super fans know where the live events are because they follow it on social media. And so they tune in to find the content. But there have been a lot of sort of aha moments when we look at the data. Who would think that a fight fan for PFL MMA would also be a fan for, let's say, NASCAR? So there are a lot of things that we're finding in our data, and we're using the data. We're using AI to actually,
I was going to ask you about that. Okay.
yeah, to actually assess the data to find out if there are patterns of viewership that we can see, to also help us in our future content acquisition. As we go out, we are trying to acquire a lot more exclusive live content, one-off live events that are just
Hmm.
exclusive to our platform for user acquisition or for just differentiation of our
So
platform.
can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah.
So what's the difference between like a one-off live event, like you're saying, like some big, maybe you give an example of that, and this idea of a sport with a season where they have, regular scheduled games or events or matches or whatever, building up to like a championship. Like what's the trade-off there?
Well, so that's interesting. So, because we're really an aggregator of third party 24/7 fast channels that are already produced, a
Okay.
lot of those fast channels are supplementary to the live content, the live games that might be shown on cable or on subscription apps. So the NBA doesn't have live content to speak of in their fast channel. But we
Hmm.
don't even have the NBA fast channel on our platform yet, but that's an example. The professional leagues fast channels are complementary to
Hmm.
their cable and broadcast and D2C offerings, but it's a way to keep the audiences engaged after the championship season ends with highlights, with older games,
Hmm.
with complementary programming. And that's extremely important for sports teams to do because you want to keep your viewer engaged and in the tent of your league
Yeah.
even after the championship season's
So
over.
all that complimentary stuff, they have this full library to keep them engaged outside, out of season potentially. And maybe you can talk a little bit about that, Kathy. What are your strategies for viewer engagement, right? How do you keep them coming back, and how to use those analytics to, kind of have that sort of I don't know, whatever you call it, virtuous cycle.
Well, we do several things. So, first of all, we try to match the viewers with the programming that they like, just
Hmm.
like Netflix does with algorithms. We're using AI to actually personalize the EPG, the electronic programming guide,
Yeah.
for our viewers. So that's in the process now. We haven't rolled it out across the whole platform, but that's critical that if you have 125 channels, you don't want your viewers to spend 12, 15 minutes looking for the sport they like and want and they're passionate about. You want to
Hmm.
bring it right to the top of their personal electronic programming guide. So we're using
Yeah.
AI to actually match content with the viewer. We're we're using and we've talked about this before on other calls. We are layering on top of our app a community engagement tool. It's really
Hmm.
it's sort of SDK on top of the app.
Okay.
We're using something or integrating something called GluedIn that uses short form videos to create community interaction and engagement. Fans, for instance, of pickleball can talk to other fans of pickleball and share their own moderated user generated content where it's just letting
Hmm.
them post anything, because there are some restrictions. But, user generated content, we have rewards, we have predictions. We're hoping to include betting data not
So you have
actual
like a
betting.
point system for,
We're
rewards,
integrating that as well.
trivia, things like that, or
And I should just say, if anyone goes to Free Live Sports right now looking for it, it's being integrated in our new app
gotcha.
development. So it's not there yet, but it is, in the rollout plan, so that they can actually communicate with and really be more engaged with other fans and with the sport itself for the sports that they really like. So we're using integrating something called Canvas Space in on also an SDK, a
Mhm,
light interactive layer on top of the content that
mhm.
can enable multi-view. So let's say you're watching a baseball game and you want to watch it from home plate versus say first base. You have the option if the channel makes this available, you have the
Mhm.
option to choose what view you want to
That's
see
really
of
cool,
that game.
especially for sports, right?
Yeah, totally. And
How
also,
about drones? That's a big thing these
yeah,
days.
we have a drone TV on our platform, which is very good. Just, it's sort
For
of
the sport of
fun.
drone racing or like dr
It's a drone TV network and it's
Oh,
mostly
cool.
sports. Yeah, it's very cool.
I'll have to check it
So,
out.
so there are a lot of ways that we're looking to enhance uh, uh, viewer engagement. We're also really looking to our channel partners to promote the availability of their channel on our platform to their obsessive, passionate, cult-like following fans.
Mhm.
So, the best way to create user engage or viewer engagement is to actually promote the fact on social media that it's
Yep.
available. Because each one of our networks has a really, really passionate fan following. So we try to tap into that. So
Very cool. I want to talk about, there's a lot of talk these days about the third space. We've got your work environment, you've got home. Increasingly, folks are talking about taking advantage of the car, the in-vehicle infotainment, software-defined vehicles, whatever you want to call it. Do you have a play there? And maybe can you tell us
we
about that?
do. We're super excited about it. So we recently, in addition to our app, Free Live Sports app, we also syndicate big bundles of sports channels through to telcos, set-top box operators, CTV platforms, and most recently to in-car automotive entertainment systems. So we did an agreement recently with TiVo Expiry that took 45 of our channels.
Oh, wow.
They're embedding them into set-top boxes, into smart TVs, but also into the operating system in BMW cars, Mercedes cars, and apparently there's some other cars that they're
Mhm.
rolling out down the road. And I just recently went to CES and saw Free Live Sports channels actually being demoed in Mercedes cars, which was fantastic. And we did another deal with a company called 3SS. Their 3Ready in-car entertainment system is available in a lot of OEMs, operating systems and OEMs in Europe, including Nissan. So it's a big sort of new frontier
Hmm.
for us that we're moving into. I mean, personally, I find it somewhat frightening that people are driving a car and watching TV.
There's regulations for all that. You got back seats, right?
It's primarily for the passenger seats.
Right. Yeah.
And it's for basically it's there it's laying the foundation for driverless cars, which is going to be huge in the next 5 to 10
Right.
years.
Then you don't
So
have to worry about distracted driving.
yeah, exactly. And frankly, they did demo the fact that I believe it's Mercedes, when the driver is actually in the car with the car on, and the car is actually running, the screen in front of the driver turns off. So,
Yeah.
it's not dangerous,
That's good.
but it's
Well,
very
Kathy, I
frightening.
can't let you leave without just asking a little bit about yourself and your hobbies or interests. It's something our audience loves to just learn a little bit more about some of our thought leaders and what they do, off work.
Well, I appreciate you asking that question. I would say right now I run two companies, and that has replaced any hobbies I have.
That is your hobby.
Yeah, that's my hobby. And I have to say, it is my hobby. I absolutely, well, it's not a hobby, it's a full-time thing, but I'm loving this. Starting up a company in the sports fast space is absolutely so exciting to me. Building a company from scratch, and I'm loving it. So that is a huge gratification for me. And it's replaced. I'm a big sports enthusiast. I do a ton of travel. I have a ton of other hobbies, but this is what's obsessing me right now, and I'm loving it.
Well, that's awesome. And I know it must be very invigorating for you. And it's invigorating for us to see you at the shows and around town. It's been wonderful chatting with you, Cathy, and getting to learn more about your story and your current ventures. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Brian. I always enjoy chatting with you.
Awesome. Well, once again, this is Brian Mahoney, CEO of Trend Research and president of the OTT executive community, signing off. Everybody have a great day. Take care.